Okay, welcome to the next lecture. Ema Kurent has joined me now, and she's going to present on eclipses in Mundane Astrology. Thanks, Emma, for joining, and I'll just leave it to you now. And I'll be off. My video and audio will be off, and I'll join whenever you want, or I'll get back to you whenever there is something. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so hello, everybody. Today I'm going to speak about eclipses and their use in mundane astrology. So, first off, what is mundane astrology? We probably know that it's astrology that deals with weather, politics, finance, national health, natural disasters, and so on. And eclipses are the all-important predictive technique. All-important means that they are like the main predictive technique that everyone, I think, should use with mundane astrology, as well as in personal astrology, in personal forecasting, and personal natal work. Why? Yeah, I could talk an hour about why eclipses are so very important. We have light in the sky, which is the sun, and the sun creates, they say that the sun is electric in nature. This is the latest scientific theory. And we know that when there is an eclipse, when an eclipse takes place, that the sun's light is blocked. So there are changes in the atmosphere, in the electromagnetic field, which of course have a strong influence upon Earth. We do not notice it, like we don't. It's like we don't. But the electromagnetic field is very strongly changed, and therefore everything that is up in the sky, together with the Earth at that very moment, gets kind of different energies. It starts vibrating with very strong energies, and the moment of an eclipse is like the energy of an eclipse is imprinted into the general. It's difficult, the terminology is very difficult here because we do not have it, because we do not know how exactly in the scientific sense this works. We only know that eclipses are, the eclipse charts that we astrologers do, show the reality of this strong force, and that eclipses work. Sometimes they can be felt in advance, and they are always felt after an eclipse takes place. They are felt like for a year. Solar eclipses can be felt for even many years. It depends on how long they last. Whereas lunar eclipses can be felt for at least 1 month in advance, and we can feel their influence for several months after the eclipse is over. Especially, of course, the influences of eclipses are longer if eclipses are strong. Total means that all the light is blocked, whether of the sun or of the moon. Now, Ptolemy, 200 BC, he wrote a book, Tetrabiblos. It's one of my very favorite astrology books, one of my basics. And in the section on mundane astrology, he says, the first and most potent cause of such events, meaning mundane events, lies in the conjunctions of the sun and moon at eclipse and the movements of the stars at that time. Now, what does he mean, the movements of the stars? It simply means that we must check everything that is up in the sky at the moment of an eclipse. For example, if we look up the first eclipse that follows this conference, this will take place on the 2nd of July this year, and it's this eclipse at 10.5 Cancer. So what he means is that we must note not just the eclipse degree and the nodal line, but every planet. He says stars, but he means planets. Every planet, and also the angular point, is to be regarded as a strong degree of these planets, you see, for the future. Okay, so everything is important, not just the eclipse degree. Now, a little bit of solar and lunar eclipse geometry. This you can find on the net. It's no big deal, you know, when there is a solar eclipse, the moon comes between the sun and earth and blocks the light of the sun, which then, you know, cannot reach some parts of the earth. Whereas with lunar eclipse, it's like the earth comes between moon and the sun and blocks again the sun's light, so that blocks the moon's light. The earth blocks the light of the sun. The light. Jesus Christ! Astronomy and me is now. So the earth is exactly between the moon and the sun at the lunar eclipse. Okay, so the moon is blocked. Yeah, the sun cannot reach the moon. So this is lunar eclipse, and now this is for beginners. Rahu and Ketu are the 2 points in the sky. These are called lunar nodes. The north lunar node is Rahu and the south is Ketu. And they move approximately 18.5 years backwards through the zodiac. And the sun takes one. The sun backwards means this way, okay? Whereas the sun travels forwards, it takes 1 year to circle the earth, whereas the moon takes 1 month to circle the earth. And when they meet, when the sun and the moon meet is new moon, okay? When the sun and the moon are on the opposite sides of the earth, it's full moon, okay? And now going on, when there is the new moon close to Ketu or Rahu, so close to this approximately 18 degrees at the most, yeah? When there is a conjunction of the sun and moon or new moon on one of these spots, it is solar eclipse. The closer to the node, the more total the eclipse, okay? Whereas at the full moon, if the full moon takes place close to Rahu and Ketu, okay? Rahu or Ketu, we have lunar eclipse. Again, the closest to the lunar nodes or Rahu and Ketu, the more total the eclipse. And now we have these are eclipses for 2019 for this year. We already had one in January, on the 6th of January. You see, this is conjunction of the sun and moon, new moon, in the form of an eclipse. This is the opposition of the sun and moon in the form of an eclipse. Now, and this is the moon's path. Now, what is this? The zero line is ecliptic, okay? The moon's nodes are this. The descending node of the moon is this, whereas the ascending node of the moon is this. Rahu is here when the moon crosses the ecliptic northwards, and when it crosses the ecliptic southwards, it is the south node. Okay, south node, north node. And as said before, when conjunction or opposition of the sun and moon take place close to these points, you see, Rahu and Ketu, then there is an eclipse. You see, here we have full moon far away from the ecliptic. Here we have new moon far away from the ecliptic here. And then they come closer and closer until the new moon and the full moon take place close to the ecliptic. And this is where an eclipse takes place. Like here, July, you see, 2nd of July, we have total solar eclipse. And then on the 16th of July, we have a partial lunar eclipse. And the last eclipse of this year is taking place on 26th of December, like here. It's also going to be a total solar eclipse, whereas the January one was a partial. So, done this. So these are just, you know, enumerated for this year. Now, a bit on the theory of eclipse effects. As already mentioned, eclipses can be total or partial. Total eclipses are much, much stronger than partial. We have in 100 years, we have approximately 150 total solar eclipses. They last from 1 to 7.5 minutes, and the length of eclipses determines its power, the strength of its influence. So it is extremely important. Sometimes how long they are, sometimes we even have eclipses taking, but very rarely, lasting like 9 or 10 even minutes. This is very strong. As already said, they create stress in the atmosphere and in life on Earth. Longer eclipses have a stronger effect. They affect specific regions on Earth, and they are felt in advance, and they are reactivated several times during at least 1 year solar or 3 months lunar after occurrence. Now, eclipses, superstition or pillars of destiny. I have transcribed this from, I have taken this from an online site, timeanddate.com. It says, the ancient Greeks believed that a solar eclipse was a sign of angry gods and that it was the beginning of disasters and destruction. And then they continue, there is no scientific evidence that solar eclipses can affect human behavior, health, or the environment. So this is the science. Now, let's look at one of the solar eclipses in this century. It took place on January 15th, 2010, and it was a total solar eclipse. It lasted no less than 11 minutes and 8 seconds. This is extremely long and extremely powerful eclipse. It was the longest eclipse in the millennium. Now, from the net, a report on 2010, on the year 2010, because as you notice, this eclipse took place in the beginning of 2010, so its effect would be felt for 1 year strongly, and also actually theoretically for 10 or 11 years, okay, just because it lasted 11 minutes. So what does the report say? Altogether, a total of 950 natural catastrophes were recorded last year, meaning 2010, 9/10 of which were weather-related events like storms and floods. This total makes 2010 the year with the second highest number of natural catastrophes since 1980, markedly exceeding the annual average for the last 10 years, 785. So take this part and take this part and take what I told you, like before, and you will see that there is this synchronicity of a strong eclipse producing more natural disasters, because eclipses affect weather very much. Now, how do eclipses work? To be able to understand eclipses, we must understand the 4 cardinal points of the sky. We know that ascendant is exactly on the east, descendant west, MC is south, and IC is north. These are the four angular points, extremely important in all astrology, I mean Western astrology. And this is like a bit of astronomical view. I will not bore you with this, we don't have enough time, I guess. I combine my personal approach to interpret eclipses is I combine them with astrocartography, with locality astrology, especially ACG, astrocartography. Astrocartography shows where on Earth, at any given moment in time, the sun, the moon, and the planets are angular. That is exactly on any of the 4 cardinal points of the sky, ascendant, descendant, MC, and IC. And now we are going right to a chart that will show you what is meant by this. Let me just maybe make this a little bit. Okay. So what is this? This is the astrocartography chart of the total solar eclipse of 15 January 2010, which lasted 11 minutes. So how do I create such a chart? I don't know what level of knowledge you all have on the other side, but those of you who do not know what is an astrocartography, let me just show you again. Let's go back to this eclipse, which I clicked, remember, this year's eclipse. We we click this here, and then we go. I use solar fire program. You see, these are solar maps here. We just click the this menu, and we get a map of the Earth. We choose, for example, we say we want Europe, we want the world, we want it centered on Europe, and this is the astrolocality chart for this July eclipse. And you see this, the moon and the sun. This is the eclipse degree. The eclipse degree will culminates. It will be exactly on the MC. Astronomically, over the United States here, the node, the accompanying node, also through the middle of the United States, and Saturn and Pluto will be on the IC, exactly on the lower angle here. So here the planets are culminating over specific longitude degrees, okay, and normally eclipse has strongest effects when in those regions when it is culminating or anti-culminating, like here you see. So these regions, India is going to be affected. I think it already has been affected. Aswin wasn't there like a month ago, because lunar eclipses have a tendency to also, like solar, sorry, this is a solar eclipse. Solar eclipses have a tendency, excuse me, to work beforehand. We can feel their effect even of total eclipse, even up to 3 months before the eclipse actually takes place. So any weather-related disasters and anything that will affect those regions, it could be already be felt, and it is going to be felt when the eclipse is reactivated in the course of the year or even several years. And then we can look up, and of course, but I will show you, this is a bit complicated because I included all the planets. You see, Mars is culminating here, Mercury here, over this region, Venus here, Neptune here, Uranus here. And here is when the planets are either on the ascendant or on the descendant. But for clarity, I omitted all the planets in the examples that I will show you, just so that you don't get confused. Because obviously, the more lines we include, the more we are confused, and what is this, what is this? You know, it's complicated. So I would just like to show you how you find the eclipse. We click here and we go to 2019, 2nd July. You see this, and let us say we want a total eclipse line, and we want a partial eclipse, and we want current chart. So you see, so this is the eclipse. This is the east point of the eclipse, and this is the so-called eclipse path. Eclipse path, the region on the Earth which is totally darkened during the eclipse. It goes from here, east point, and travels here and ends here. Now, in mundane eclipse work, locality work, what we do is we realize that these regions are going to be affected, and normally what we do is we draw the so-called horizontal and vertical lines, which are called extension lines. Those of you who follow Bill Meridian will know what I'm speaking. We take a rubber or something, and we just draw a line. Sorry, not a rubber. We do it in a program, and I will show you later the pictures that I create. But we draw a line here through this, exactly through this point, like here, and exactly through this point, like here. It extends around the Earth. It goes around the Earth, and one line is drawn here. The vertical line is through this point and up to the north and to the south, and here up to the north, up to the south. Okay, so these are the events, strong events, weather related, or earthquakes, or hurricanes, or I don't know, when the nature goes wild. You know, the nature tends to go wild over the regions that are affected And these are the ones that I enumerated, that I have shown you. And I think every astrologer should, from all countries should know how to draw these charts and should know how to apply this technique to their current maybe climate, conditioning and political affairs and so. So I will close this now because it was just to show you how it's done. If someone doesn't understand something, ask me later. I will close this and I will go back to our presentation. So this is the chart where I included, as you will notice, only the eclipse degree, Sun and Moon on MC here, see? And here is the South Node line on the IC. Sorry, North Node on the MC and South Node on the IC. And so here eclipse was culminating. This is this 2010 eclipse. And here the eclipse was anti-culminating, okay? And now this is the eclipse path started here and the east point and went like here and it ended here in South Africa. So, and the regions of influence of the eclipse, obviously this, over this line, over all the extension lines. You see, this is the extension line, the horizontal, and here is the vertical. And another horizontal line of the east point runs through here, and the vertical here. So theoretically, all these regions are sensitive to the workings of the eclipse. Plus, of course, this line, eclipse culminating, and this line, eclipse anti-culminating. And together with them, all the places where sun and where the eclipse is on the descendant, on the descendant is here. On the ascendant is from here upwards to here, and here again on the descendant. Okay, so this is the astrolocality. And you take normally like from 200 for even up to 500 kilometers north and south. Like this is a strong field of influence running throughout here and throughout here. Okay, so let us take a closer look at this eclipse. Remember in 2011, okay, starting already in 2010 was the Arab Spring. It started here in Libya, Tripoli, where there was huge pro-democracy protests. It was like the people decided to overthrow the monarchies. They wanted democracy, and it was like a fire. You know, it sprang to all the North African countries. You know, along this line, and to Syria. And in March 2011, Syrian war started. Syria is here. You know, so this strong eclipse had strong effects over these territories all around here. This was the strongest effect of the eclipse. Besides another, and this was weather related, the March 2011 Honshu earthquake. Remember, magnitude 9 or something, Honshu. Remember that catastrophic. One of the very, very strongest, one of the maybe 5 strongest earthquakes that the Earth has experienced up to ever since we started to follow, to notice them, to measure them. And it is along this line. And you might ask, you know, March 2011, but it was so long after January 2010. Well, I told you, 11 minutes means first year strong, second year strong, couple of years strong, and then it gets less strong. But the consequences can last many, many years. As we know, with the Syrian war, which is still ongoing, which has not ended yet, it might take 11 years before it's finally ended. You see, like, so the effects are strong, of course, and this. And then we had, there was another in April 2010 already. There was the Yushu earthquake. I do not know how many casualties or whatever, but it was a very strong one. It also in China, also along this line. Now, already before the March 2011 Honshu earthquake, we had a very strong earthquake in Christchurch. Some of you might remember this. It happened on February 2011. It was a devastating earthquake. It was many buildings were destroyed. People lost lives, and this is this preceded, but it is along the same eclipse line. Oh, this is fascinating. And then there was just along the eclipse path. We had now first already in 2000. These were both in 2010. All the four actually along the eclipse line. All the four catastrophes took place already in the first year of the eclipse working. Now let's start here. In May 2010, there was the Mangalore plane crash. Several hundred people lost their lives, and this was along the eclipse on the MC, exactly on this line, and close to the eclipse path. In May 2010, in the same month, there was Cyclone Laila, devastating cyclone, and there was in India. Actually, this refers to the northern hemisphere. We had very strong heat waves, northern hemisphere, like all around here. And another event took place along this line in, I don't know which month, but it was in 2010, 7.5 magnitude Nicobar Islands earthquake, also a devastating earthquake. So you can see that this eclipse caused many dire weather and other events, because eclipses affect not just weather, they don't just create earthquakes, they create political unrest, they create, they change the way people look at life, and these are mass events. Then we have another eclipse, the next eclipse, solar annular. Now, annular eclipse is the same as is also total eclipse, but annular eclipses are those where when the moon is in apogee means closest to Earth. And when the moon at the time of a solar eclipse is close to Earth, then the eclipsed sun has a tiny shine around the sun. It's, the moon doesn't cover the whole sun's surface. So some tiny light, it's like a corona, it's like a, so this is annular eclipse, but it is like total, very strong. And this lasted 5.77 minutes, and this was also very long eclipse, very strong eclipse. And what did we have? So this took place in May. There was a very strong, devastating drought in the summer of this year in the United States. And here is the eclipse path, run from here to here. And these are the extension lines, you see, the extension lines. Now, one of for Europe, for us Europeans, one of the strongest, the most devastating effect was the Paris attacks on 13 November 2015. There were hundreds of people died in those terrorist attacks. And this line ran exactly through Paris, the extension line of the eclipse. Sorry. This was not the extension, excuse me. Extension line is here, and this is the extension line. This is not the extension line, but this eclipse on the IC, exactly on this IC. I just painted it black because so as to point strongly to this locality of Paris. 13 November 2015. See, exactly here. And then we had Oklahoma wildfires, you see, on the east point of the eclipse in August 2012, devastating fires. There were Colorado wildfires where 600 homes were destroyed in June and July of 2020. These were here, all around here. And the USR derecho is a very strong hurricane, devastating, took place around here. You see, all these areas were strongly affected. And here, when the sun and moon were on the descendant, Hurricane Sandy was formed in the Jamaican Sea around here, and then it affected these areas, but it was formed here on these lines. Hurricanes are formed over the regions where eclipse works, and then they of course they travel far, and they can get landed where there were no eclipse effect, but the origin of the hurricane is where the eclipse line travels, like here. And this is the interesting one interesting things happened here. You see, this is the extension line of the west point of the eclipse. Over here was flight 8501 crash on 28th December 2014. So this is a year and a half after the eclipse, but remember, it was nearly 6 minutes long. So it is no wonder that the area remained sensitive, and this crash happened here. It left 162 dead. An extensive research of crashes would surely show that those most deadly ones and serious ones certainly happen along the eclipse lines, along one of the several lines that are associated with eclipse effects. And then we had total lunar eclipse of 15 April 2014. This is not particularly interesting, but I just showed it just for you to see that lunar eclipses work as well. Sometimes I think that lunar eclipses affect weather even more, and earthquakes even more than solar eclipses, because solar eclipses, their main focus is on the political events and on the fates of nations and their leaders especially, which in turn affect the nation. But solar as well as lunar affect weather and earthquake formation strongly. This is I published an article several years ago in the Mundane Astrology dealing with earthquakes specifically. It was published in 3 parts even. One part is still online. And there you can see the whole procedure of how to pinpoint the time and locality of possible earthquake formation. Now, this is interesting because in these 2 regions, along sun and node on the ascendant, on the descendant, excuse me, I'm on the descendant, sun and on the descendant. This was the Papua earthquake on the 11th and 19th April, 2 strong earthquakes, one after another. And on Solomon Islands, very strong earthquakes on the 12th and 13th of April. Now, nearly all together, this area was very strongly shaken. Next, we have total solar eclipse of 20th March 2015. Now, this is remember that in 2015, there was another in the beginning, in May. No, excuse me. No, this is 14, this is 15. No, it's okay. This is the first, the first total solar eclipse of 20th March. And this is the eclipse that strongly affected this area. You see, this is where eclipse culminated together, and it was on the south node. Eclipses, solar eclipses taking place on the south node are more devastating, are more prone to create a destruction, and endings and fatal things than those eclipses that take place on the north node. Well, anyway, in this year, the Syrian war really strongly escalated, and it affected Iran and also Iraq, and we had very strong refugee movement. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people, millions of people were leaving their homes and traveling to Europe. It all began here at this point. I do not remember why I included Putin, but sorry. Yeah. Now, on 13 November 2015, remember I mentioned Paris attacks? Hang on. You see. Yeah. Now I must combine. Now this is the hard part. This is the hard part, but it's really difficult, but when there is a strong eclipse that lasts many minutes, like 5 or more, this eclipse chart stays in the atmosphere. It's like an imprint, I told you, and it can get activated several years later. Now we had these hot spots here, and although this eclipse took place in 2020, it was activated in 2015 on the 30th November. How? Now we'll get to this point of activation, and you can see that in 2015 we had this eclipse, which also affected this region. Because all this region is actually affected by the eclipse, although the main path goes here, but here was pretty strong. 0.75, this is close to being very strong. This is Paris. And now the timing. In 2015, March, when the eclipse starts, okay? And these are transits of the node and transits of Saturn. And this is the 45 degree graph. I don't know if you use these graphs, but Solar Fire creates them, and I always use them to time eclipses, and of course to time progressions and transits and everything. That it's very useful to use this. Now look at this. Note, now this is just so that you don't get lost. This is timing, this is timeline, okay? 15, 16, 3 months and 17, you see? And here are the degrees from 0 to 45. Actually, I could use the 30 degree graph here, but okay, I complicated it a bit. But anyway, when planets or the nodes, when they move retrograde, their movement is shown like here, you see, from 10 degree of Libra areas, they moved retrograde, like receding degrees, yeah, like here, and here they exited the Aries Libra and entered Pisces. Can you see here the transiting node in exact conjunction of the eclipse degree. And this is the point of activation. When a transiting node transits over the eclipse degree, then it is that the eclipse gets reactivated and shows its effects. Look, November 2015, 13th November 2015. You see here, within days of the very exact activation. This is when the Paris attacks took place. And the same fashion, the same mode, in the same fashion, we can time the workings of any eclipse. The complicated thing is that we must note which regions are affected through the combined effect of several eclipses taking place through through several years. Total lunar eclipse of 28 September 2015. We had this interesting, in Mecca, there was the annual gathering of Muslims, and there was a stampede. Many people were dead. This 2,030 people, 300, 2,300, this is crazy. So many people were dead, and this took place in South, like here is Mecca, you see, when the eclipse was on the ascendant. No, this is the ascendant descendant, where ascendant descendant axis. Okay, you see here, and also Syrian bombings. This is Syria as well up here. Here, Syrian bombing started end of September of this year. Now here we have this year's eclipse, total solar eclipse of July 2nd, and I have only shown nodal and Saturn lines, also the square points, and these are the regions of influence of this eclipse. So what can we see here? The eclipse will start in South America and will end in the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. It will culminate in over the middle region of the United States, and it will anti-culminate over India. And then we have the squares of the eclipse degree and Saturn and Node gathering here around the western part of Africa. And here we have eclipse on the descendant, from here to here, on the descendant. Together with the eclipse, there is Saturn. Why I included Saturn? I included Saturn because Saturn is conjuncting the node. Exactly. I will show you the chart again. Let me just see if the chart is here. No, this is the next eclipse. This is the eclipse I'm talking about. You see, this is located to Slovenia, Ljubljana, Slovenia. It is interesting, very interesting that the south, you see, south node Saturn, you see, they are very, very closely conjunct. South node 1736, Saturn 1743, and of Capricorn. And this will all be very exactly on the ascendant for Slovenia. That's why I predicted that, because Saturn is the planet of cold and bad weather, and so I predicted very strong weather events for summer and also for later when the eclipse will get reactivated. This eclipse takes place at 10:37 of Cancer, and of course all the as I already told you in the beginning, all the places of the other planets are to be noted. In personal astrology, I use eclipses a lot. Eclipses are my main predictive technique. I work with clients daily, and I must tell you that without eclipses, it would be impossible for me to pinpoint those critical or very successful, or those years when there is some kind of strong change takes place in people's lives, and this works on all levels. It can happen in the realm of one's spiritual development or totally physical. Eclipses pinpoint when the time comes for an organ of the body to get ill or up. So it is very important for us to realize that eclipses are the darkening of the light, and the darkening of the light means a shock. And if such a shock affects your body or affects your maybe 10th house, which is associated with your job, or maybe your 4th house, which is associated with your parents, or first house, which is associated with your body. I don't know, and then and when it makes the eclipse makes strong aspects to your birth chart, then then your organism, your body, your everything is shaken, and when it's shaken, then this stimulates changes either in your body, in your health, in your interest in life. Sometimes people, just change their whole personality, not their whole personality, but strong aspects of their personalities, of their ambition, when a strong eclipse affects their chart. But this is not mundane astrology. This is just, to make you aware of the strength of this. Going back to my presentation, this is again a timeline. This is how we predict times when an eclipse gets reactivated. Remember I told you about how the nodes, the transiting nodes, activate eclipse degrees. And here we have from 2nd July onwards, you see the north node is here. It goes backwards, retrogrades, and it touches the eclipse degree at 10.5 of Cancer at about 25th of October. And this is when we will see the eclipse effects. How will we see them? This is the difficult part. This is the difficult part which asks of us, of every one of us, to study each our national charts. We know, for example, if you live in India, you know what climate is prevalent in India. You know that if it's a hurricane season in October, for example, then you know that there is a danger of a very strong weather event, hurricane or something in October. It's not just the end of October here, because eclipse gets activated by several different ways, in several different ways. I only mentioned one very strong activation. But it is often activated by a Mars transit. You see Mars here. This is Mars in Libra. It will come to an exact square of the eclipse degree in Cancer, like in the middle of October, let's say around the 20th of October. And this will combine with the conjunction of the nodes, excuse me. And then we also have the Mars. It will first square the eclipse degree, and it will square a bit later, just at the end of the October, it will square the eclipse's node. And Mars, is the troublemaker. It can be war, it can be terrorist attacks, it can be, I don't know, it's not nice. It's something certainly not nice. And this eclipse gets reactivated in end of February, beginning of March 2020 by Mars opposing the eclipse degree. And a bit later in March, opposing the north node, and of course conjuncting the south node at the same time. So these are some of the danger points. Then eclipse can also get reactivated by every consequent new moon or full moon, which is in some kind of aspect. For example, just between two eclipses, we have, just in the middle of two eclipses, because every year we have two solar eclipses, from 2 to 3, and every half a year we have an eclipse, a solar eclipse, once on the north node and then on the south node, or vice versa. And right in the middle of those two eclipses, there is a danger point. I've done research in air crashes, and it's fascinating. I did hundreds of them, and I don't know where I have it now. I never published it, but because the results were still not as good as I wanted them, but there was a marked tendency for most deadly airplane crashes to take place just between two solar eclipses. It's in the days between two solar eclipses. Now, this is the last eclipse of this year, solar annular eclipse on the 26th of December, conjuncting Jupiter, and this is a very interesting one. I located it for New Delhi, but you can locate it for any place in the on the Earth. You do this by your software. And now, this is happy eclipse seasons. My last word to you, happy eclipse seasons. Now, to conclude this, of course, I will ask you to ask questions because the last 10 minutes of my talk are supposed to invite you to questions. Just before the end, I would like to introduce you to my site. Aswin, am I allowed to do this or?
No, I can do that. Don't worry. Ema Kurent has. I met Ema Kurent in New Delhi, where she actually was supposed to give a lecture on eclipses, but unfortunately, due to various other programs that were scheduled in the conference, the speakers, especially the speakers of astrology, were kind of given very less time, like about 15 to 20 minutes, or probably even less. So for some, especially 15 to 20 minutes is very difficult to kind of cover any kind of a topic. Even an introduction could probably take much more time. So I kind of listened to Emma's lecture just for 15 and 20 minutes, and it was super impressive. So I thought I would ask Emma to kind of present that here on the online forum so that it is accessible for people, because I thought it was very important. And at least I have never seen any actual lectures on eclipses. So it is very fascinating, and it is also very good that you kind of predicted the the upcoming eclipses in 2019 and 2020. So you can visit Ema Kurent at emakurent.com, EMAKURENT, and I have already shared the link to her new horary astrology book, which is a 400-page book, and it's a huge book. It's available on Amazon. So I've shared the link to the book, and I surely recommend that book. And I'll also probably share the reviews of that book. At the end of the day, you can also find it on the Amazon, and sometime soon I'll also write or publish a review on the book. So I'm sure you'll be extremely benefited by the book. So yeah, but at this point of time, I don't think we have any questions. So I'll come to know only after I kind of sign off from this forum. So we'll see if there is any questions that come to this video. I'll just tag you here and you can answer them. Okay. Do you hear me?